Hey guys, this is Riss from Riss's Unprofessional. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate the turnout so far. It's been pretty nice. So I have a couple of topics that I wanted to discuss today. Um, and I have to say, I'm still trying to figure out lighting and stuff because I make sure that I put on like a decent amount of face paint before I come on. And then I bring my computer into this sunny room. It's a sunroom. And I close as many of the blinds as I can. And when I tell you, like, I don't know if you can tell, but I mean, I'm wearing, you can't tell. I'm wearing blush. Like, I put blush on, saw how I looked in the camera when I turned it on. I was like, all right, this is clearly not enough blush because you can still see through me. I'm like Vision, where like you can go like you. I give the illusion where like you could put your hands through me. Um, and so I went and I put more blush on it, and it just didn't do anything. And I was like, if I keep putting more blush on, everyone in this house is gonna think I'm an asshole. They're just gonna think I look insane, and then they're gonna commit me. So I am wearing makeup, but it just you wouldn't know it. It looks, I mean, no makeup here and no makeup here. Makeup here, no difference. Like, nope, no difference. Um, my mother was kind enough to tell me she's been watching my videos, and she watched the last video about where I said I was thinking about moving, and she's like, I was watching your video on moving. Boy, you're pale. Thanks, Ma. Yeah, I mean, like, you made me this way. It's what you get for being an Eastern European Jew, like part Polak, part Russian, whatever I am. That's why I'm a good stick. It's why nurses love to take my blood because you can see all my veins. Um, so yeah, so it doesn't matter how hard I try, I can't be less white, guys. I just can't. You know, I mean, I guess that means I'm really privileged. Um, and I'm a white supremacist or something because like I don't know if it's the whiter you are, the more evil you are. So anyway, I figured I would start off with a topic that is a little bit boring to me, but we should still talk about it. I mean, Cuomo. Cuomo is my governor, and I've hated Cuomo since he was voted in. I think he's a douchebag. I think his brother's a douchebag. I'm pretty sure. I think his father was a douchebag too. Um, but that guy he came in and he is like a New Yorker. He taught, but he like I think he like puts on the show. Like he's trying to talk a little bit. When I hear that guy's voice, and it's not the accent, because I happen to love. I used to look down on the accent a little when I was a kid because I didn't always have the strongest Brooklyn accent. It only comes out like kind of sometimes. But that guy, it's not his accent. It's like the way he enunciates words. It always sounds like he's parched, like his mouth is dry, and that he needs to take a sip of water. Like his mouth kind of sticks when it talks. And so I get very twitchy. Like my eye just starts to twitch when he speaks. I really hate that guy. He's always been a douchebag. He's always been a bully. I've always thoroughly enjoyed the fight between him and de Blasio because I think they're both horrendous people. And de Blasio, he's a communist. And we warned you. He was voted in. As mayor of New York City when I was still living there. And I was like, guys, like, do you even know what you're voting for? And they loved him so much. And I knew people who were campaigning for this guy. And then he ended up doing things that those people didn't like. And we were like, we told you. So similar in fashion is Cuomo. We told you. So Cuomo is a very hard-nosed New York guy. Actually, not too dissimilar from Trump. Might be hard to believe because one is, a left-wing media darling, not anymore, and the other one, is Trump. Both are very bombastic, guttural speaking, shooting from the hip, unfiltered. And I think that's what a lot of people didn't like that about Trump because he kind of talked, to us, to anybody who comes from New York City, like born and raised in New York City, not Midwest transplant, daddy's paying my way through New York City, my New York City adventure. But like real communities in Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, like where I'm from. you knew people who talk like that all the time. So it wasn't really a shock to hear someone just talk that way off the cuff and have a big mouth. And Cuomo's kind of like that. And I guess that's why I never I guess I never minded that about him. But he is behind the scenes a really nasty guy, and he threatens people who get in his way. And he's threatened, I think he's just threatened enough people where now even his own party is turning on him. Because let me tell you something. Since COVID has started, he was praising Trump at the beginning. Trump is giving us everything we need. I've been talking to him. If I ask for something, I get it. Trump sent the naval ship and he didn't use it, so he sent it away. Trump oversent things. He sent it away. Cuomo sent it away. He said we didn't need it. We weren't overwhelmed. We thought we were going to be overwhelmed and we weren't. Fine. But since May, conservatives have been talking about the death rate in the nursing homes and how the numbers are being skewed because they were sending old people to the hospitals with COVID, and then they would die, and they weren't counting those as a nursing home death because they didn't die in the nursing home, but they came from the nursing home. They were infected in the nursing home. Then they were sending criminals to nursing homes. So they were sending people who weren't elderly, but they were using nursing homes as a convalescent home for criminals. So they were getting infected. I mean, we knew that the numbers weren't right. We knew that the death toll among the elderly in nursing homes in New York State were much higher. I'm a healthcare worker. As a healthcare provider, I had many patients who worked as staff in nursing homes telling me how bad it is. It was terrible. And so we've known this for quite some time. And we waited for CNN, MSNBC, and other left-wing outlets to report on it, and they didn't report on it. Because then it says that, what does that do? That blows up the narrative that, he was doing great. Because remember, he was putting out pressers every day. He's so magical. He's so wonderful. You had people, wanting to marry this guy. And all the while, I'm like, that guy's disgusting. He is a creep. And he is lying. And a lot more people died on his watch. And it's being covered up. So now all of a sudden, they started to pay attention to the fact that death toll was fudged. And instead, I think because if they admit that the death toll was fudged and they really screwed things up, then A, they look like fools. And B, this isn't really Trump's fault. Because remember, New York had the highest death rate. And a good chunk of that was the elderly. So it really screws up all the reporting for the last year. It makes them look like fools. So what do? They start to deflect with the sexual harassment stuff. So my thinking is, I don't think it's the sexual harassment stuff per se. And I don't even think it's the death toll, because I think when people in a certain party, do really bad things, like kill a high number of people, from, not directly, but their policies kill a lot of people, they're not going to report on it as much. But I'm thinking, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'm thinking Cuomo has done something worse behind the scenes to have pissed someone off. I have friends who think that the theory is that Letitia James is behind all of this. Letitia James, I forgot her role. I've known her from New York City. We know who she is, and I think she's the Attorney General of New York. Letitia James has her eye on being governor of New York, God help us, because she is an out-and-out socialist, and she is a racist. That woman is a very racist human being, and she said really horrendous things. And she has her eye on the governorship. So I think she's making a big thing out of this, potentially because she's eyeing his job. Maybe they don't have use for him anymore. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on why, but there's something like 30-something accusers, and I'm pretty, across the board, consistent, like with Brett Kavanaugh. I'm not sure if all of these can be believed, if some people are just sort of trying to ride the train here, kind of, riding the coattails, trying to get in on the action. And some of this doesn't necessarily sound like sexual harassment. Um, and I'm not trying to defend him. I don't like the guy. I think he's a sleazebag. But I think there's a reason why he's being cannibalized by his own party. And, I guess the plus side is that there's no longer a chance that he could ever be president. Not after all of this. But Cuomo is done. I'm curious to know what you think about this. Um, but yeah, and also let's not forget, and I just have to say this: his vaccine rollout here in this state was terrible. He did not prioritize the sick and he did not prioritize the elderly. He prioritized people. I mean, initially the healthcare workers, yes. But, and I have so many teacher friends and family, you're going to hate me for this. You were not the priority. Not unless you were older and not unless you were sick. You had no right getting the vaccine before a bunch of elderly people who have been so terrified to leave their home that they're sitting at their kitchen table and they're refreshing, trying to find a date. I mean, for people in their 70s to have to drive hours from their home to get a vaccine, but teachers were priority when most of them are working from home. Like, I don't understand this. That was ridiculous. That should never have happened. Not that we don't want our teachers to be safe. We absolutely do. But the ones that were young and healthy, 20-something, 30-something year olds, not priority in any field. Like I said, unless you're working directly with sick people. Okay, moving on. I took the clip out of my hair. It was driving me a little bit batty. I only want to briefly touch upon what happened, that shooting at the massage parlors. I think it's really important that we wait for all of the information to come out. We don't know this guy's motives, but just based on the little bit of information that we do have, this guy was a kook, and he was a crazy, self-proclaimed sex addict, to the point where, he was carrying a Bible with him everywhere he went in school. That's not normal. My understanding is he went to these massage parlors because in the past he had gone there allegedly for sex acts. And, that just sort of tails into a completely different topic about human trafficking. Being from New York City, especially in Brooklyn and parts of Queens, we all know about those spas that have no sign out in front, and you know exactly what they are. They're getting raided all the time. My neighborhood in Bensonhurst, became heavily Asian, and they became full of those spas. They were being raided all the time. And what was really sad about it is that most of those women are human trafficked victims. And it's really terrible that, they get they pay, maybe they pay a certain amount of money and they come to this country with promises of freedom, and then this is what happens to them. So, but that's a totally separate topic. But this is being purported as an Asian hate crime, simply because of his color. I haven't seen evidence of that yet, and I'm not entirely sure you're going to find that. And let's not forget, there were people who were killed who were not Asian in this, during this. And I believe in the death penalty, and I believe things like this deserve the death penalty. I think people like that, they don't deserve to live. We don't have a reason to fund this man's life. We shouldn't be feeding him. We shouldn't be housing him. This man deserves to die. End of story. That being said, again, conservatives have been talking about racism against Asians for a long time. Whether it's been quotas in universities where, if you're Asian, you have to have a higher score on your entry exams and your SATs to get in. And then they have a quota where if there's too many Asians, they won't let them in. After, all right, too many Asians, cut them off, let other people in. And, I believe in merit, and I think that if they are the best, then they should be getting into all the schools, but they're being discriminated against. And they tried to sue, and I think they lost I think it was a federal case of racism against Harvard, if I'm not mistaken, and they lost. Additionally, I know San Francisco and other big cities like New York City, where there's a very large Asian population, violent crimes against Asians have been up for quite some time. And this is not the first time, in our history that's been the case. But it is something that we've been talking about and we've been very aware of. A lot of the times sometimes they are attacked because They come off as weak and they don't fight back and they are attacked, sadly, because of their race. That's disgusting. But all of a sudden, I feel like the left is using this to, just pick another group that they're trying to kind of own. This is ours now. Stop Asian hate. And it's like, yeah, I totally agree. Stop Asian hate. But maybe start telling the truth. Who's perpetuating a good chunk of this? It's not white supremacists. Certainly not in New York City. Certainly not in San Francisco and Los Angeles. It's not white supremacists. Now, again, if it turns out that's, what this was about, these shootings, I'm with you. But again, that's why I believe in the death penalty. And he murdered all these innocent people and he needs to go. So that's my thoughts on that. You tell me what you think. And lastly, I just wanted to also briefly touch upon Sharon Osbourne. I don't really hear anybody else talking about this so much. So Sharon Osbourne she's one of the hosts of a really, I've never watched the show. I think it's called The Talk. And after Piers Morgan came out against Meghan Markle and, former Prince Harry or whatever he's, I don't know what his name is now, Harry, and said, I don't believe her. Of course, they branded him as a racist and he lost his job, which is insanity. The guy's not a racist. And so Sharon Osbourne, and I really can't remember the name of this lady, Cheryl or Sherry. You guys might, I'll look this up after. I probably should have looked this up beforehand. Her co-host, they were having a discussion, like a lively and heated discussion about this situation. And Sharon Osbourne, she's Brit, and she defends Piers Morgan. She's like, I know this guy. He is absolutely not a racist. And her co-host, who is Black, was saying, she's crying and putting, waterworks about racism. And she's like, stop crying. You have yet, you can't even point out what he actually said that was racist. You're not allowed to criticize anyone that's a different race because that's just racism. It doesn't matter if what they're saying is stupid and idiotic and bad. You're not allowed to criticize them. They're off limits. That is not the kind of world I want to live in. I'm not going to live in a society where I can't criticize bad ideas and stupid things because of the color of someone's skin. So Sharon Osbourne, she's always been very outspoken, and she said, name one thing he's ever done that's racist. And she's saying to her co-host, you're a friend of mine, I don't want to fight with you, but you can't just call things racist. So ever since then, The Talk has been essentially canceled. It's been on a hiatus, and they're afraid of bringing it back because they're calling this a racial incident too. And don't get me wrong, the show, I have no interest in ever watching the show, but what nonsense, what absolute bullshit. Let me tell you about Sharon Osbourne. And I can tell you this as someone who has been a rabid fan of Ozzy Osbourne since I was 14 years old. I used to write his name on my knuckles. Everyone who remembers me from back in the day, with my Ozzy shirts, my Black Sabbath shirts, my round glasses. I love the guy. Sharon Osbourne, she's his manager and his wife, and she's the reason he's still alive. And I know that people, in the rock and roll industry, some people are not the biggest fan of hers, but let me tell you something. She did a great job with him. He would have probably been dead if not for her, because he was heavy on drugs and alcohol, and she helped him several times clean up and keep his career going. He didn't ruin his career because she did a great job. And she managed and brought up a lot of famous rock bands. And she is tough. She's a tough lady. That woman did not get where she is in the industry by being a racist. And she didn't get where she is by being a hateful person. I've heard she's not the nicest person, but she's shrewd. And if she were a man, and I'm going to pull the feminist card here because I think this is one of those cases, she's in the industry. And men in the industry, they're crude, they're shrewd, and they're hard-assed. And we really, up until now, we don't really call out people in the industry for being so hard-assed. Not the men, at least. But a woman comes along in the music industry, and she's basically the same way. And she was not very well liked, I think, because of that. Personally, I don't have beef with her. I'm Team Sharon in this case. That woman is not a racist. Piers Morgan's not a racist. Chances are, if someone's being called a racist, there's a very good chance they're not a racist. Anyway, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in about this. And like I said, nobody really has been talking that much about it. the search continues for places to live. I'm still not 100% sure. Maybe I'll stay put for another year. But I'm kind of liking Florida right now. I'm kind of liking the idea of being at the beach all the time, and the beach that isn't in Jersey. I think somebody told me that they're like, Marissa, I watched your video on potentially moving to Jersey while you managed to talk yourself out of moving to New Jersey in your video. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I did. Not totally off the table, but not likely. I think unlikely. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. I really do appreciate it. I know that a couple of people have requests about talking about the vaccine itself. And I think that is something that I probably want to read a little bit more about. I mean, as a provider, I have a lot of information about it, but I think I need more, I think I need to delve into the topic a little bit more. Let me know what else you want me to discuss. I'm trying to touch upon topics that I know you'll enjoy. I really do appreciate everything. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Happy weekend. The weather's getting warmer, so that's exciting. All right, guys, I'm signing off. I'll see you soon.